All right, so let's set the scene. You're out in the countryside, trying to get some work done, maybe find a little breathing room. And then, all of a sudden, this delegation of VIPs shows up. And I don't mean your neighbors stopping by. I mean a high-level group has traveled, 80 to 100 miles?
On foot, yeah. Over some pretty rough terrain. It's a huge effort.
It really is. So you'd assume there's a national emergency, right? Like, is the government collapsing? Is there a war?
You'd think so.
But no. They've walked all that way to lodge a formal complaint about hygiene.
Specifically hand washing.
It sounds completely absurd. But that's exactly how Matthew chapter 15 kicks off. You have these Pharisees and scribes, the legal eagles coming all the way from Jerusalem.
And they're there to pick a fight with Jesus. But, as we often find, the thing on the surface is never really the thing.
And that is what we are digging into today. This is our deep dive into Matthew 15. We've got the text itself, of course, but we're also pulling in historical context on Pharisaic law, the geography of Tyre and Sidon, and even some archaeology.
Because this really isn't about germs. If you read this as a debate about public health, you're missing the whole point.
Right. Germ theory is still, 1,800 years away?
Something like that.
Yeah.
No, this is a clash of worldviews. It's rigid human tradition coming up against, an authentic, messy kind of faith. The stakes are huge because it's about what actually makes a person clean.
Okay, so let's get to the accusation. The VIPs arrive, they look around, and they're just horrified.
Yeah.
Jesus' disciples are eating without washing their hands.
And we have to be super clear here. This has nothing to do with actual dirt.
It's about ritual purity.
Exactly. You have to understand the tradition of the elders. This wasn't the written law from Moses. You won't find a rule in the 10 Commandments about ceremonial hand washing before a meal.
So this is an add-on.
It's a massive add-on. It was called the oral law, and the idea was to build a fence around the actual law.
A fence?
Yeah, a protective barrier. If God says don't do X, the tradition adds a rule that stops you from even getting close to X. And this hand-washing thing, it had become a badge of honor. It showed you were serious.
So when they ask, why do your disciples break the tradition?
Yeah.
They're really saying, why are you people so spiritually compromised?
That's the charge. And Jesus' response is fascinating. He doesn't defend them. He doesn't make an excuse.
No, he just flips the whole thing on its head. He attacks their entire premise.
He goes on the counterattack. He asks them, and why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? It's a devastating pivot.
And he brings a receipt. He uses this very specific and kind of technical legal example, the concept of Corban.
Yes, the loophole theology.
Walk us through this because it sounds like a financial scam disguised as extreme devotion.
That's not far off, honestly. Yeah. So one of the 10 Commandments is honor your father and mother.
Right.
In that world, that was a financial command. There's no Social Security. Your kids were your safety net when you got old.
You had to take care of them.
You did. But let's say you have some money, some property, and well, you don't really want to spend it on your aging parents.
Oh.
The tradition had created this loophole. You could declare your assets Corban.
Which means?
A gift devoted to God.
So I have to give my entire bank account to the temple right then and there.
And that's the trick. No, you could put off the actual transfer until after you died. But the moment you said the word, that money was technically God's.
So when mom and dad show up asking for help,
you can just shrug and say, gosh, I'd love to help, but my hands are tied. This money is dedicated to God. I can't touch it for you.
Wow. That is unbelievably cynical. You get to keep using the property, you look super religious, and you get to stiff your parents.
That's exactly it. You're using a religious rule to break a direct commandment from God. And Jesus calls them out on it. He says they've nullified God's word for their tradition.
They're so focused on the clean hands, but their hearts are. Well, they're leaving their parents to starve.
And that's when he quotes Isaiah. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. It just cuts right to the bone.
So after stunning the legal team, he turns to the crowd. He decides, okay, time to set the record straight for everyone.
And he says something truly radical for the time. Listen, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of it.
Which had to have been a bombshell for a first-century Jewish audience. Their whole culture was built on dietary laws, on what you could and couldn't eat.
Oh, the disciples are definitely freaking out. They pull him aside and whisper, do you realize how offended the Pharisees are?
They're worried about the bad press.
And Jesus just dismisses them. Blind guides, he calls them. But Peter, who's so often the one asking the questions we're all thinking.
He says, Can you explain that one?
Yeah, I don't get it. So Jesus gives them this little lesson in biology versus theology.
Right. He says food goes in, gets digested, and then it's eliminated. It's a physical process. It doesn't touch your soul.
But then he pivots to what does come out of a person, what comes from the heart.
And he gives this whole list of things that actually make a person unclean.
Evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander.
And that list isn't random, is it? I was looking at it in our notes.
Not at all. Murder, adultery, theft, false witness. He's pulling directly from the Ten Commandments. He's dragging the conversation back to core morality.
He's saying you're worried about a little dust on your fingers, but you're okay with all this poison in your heart.
Exactly. Real defilement is an inside job. He's moving the location of holiness from the outside to the inside.
Okay, so if the first half of the chapter is about breaking down tradition, the second half is about crossing literal physical borders.
That's a great way to put it, because right after this, he takes his disciples on a road trip.
To the district of Tyre and Sidon. So, geography check. Where are we?
We're in Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon. This is Gentile territory, pagan territory. Historically, this is the land of Baal worship.
So for a devout Jew, this is basically off limits. This is unclean land.
You just don't go there. And he's taking his disciples, who are already stressed about hand washing, deep into this foreign land.
And right away, they meet a local. The text calls her a Canaanite woman.
And that word choice is so deliberate. Canaanite was an old, archaic term by then. Matthew is using it to signal that she represents the ancient, historic enemy of Israel. She's everything the Pharisees would say to avoid.
But she comes out and she's shouting, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me." She's using a Jewish messianic title.
It's just startling. The experts in Jerusalem are debating his credentials, and this pagan woman from Phoenicia immediately recognizes who he is.
The interaction is, it's tough to read. At first, he just ignores her. He did not answer a word, the text said.
The silence is so loud, and the disciples are just annoyed. Send her away, they say. She's bothering us.
And when Jesus finally speaks, it sounds like he agrees with them. He says, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel."
He's stating his mission parameters. Theologically, the Messiah comes to the Jew first. He's establishing the official rule.
But she doesn't back down. She kneels. And then comes that line. Jesus says, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs."
You can't get around how harsh that sounds.
He called her a dog.
Well, the Greek word is a bit more specific. It's kunarian. It means little dogs, like household puppies, not the wild scavenging dogs in the street.
Okay, so slightly less insulting, but it's still pretty rough.
It is. It absolutely reflects the standard view of the time. Israel is the family, the children at the table. Gentiles are the pets under the table. He's setting the stage for her.
And her comeback is what makes the whole story. She doesn't get offended.
No, she doesn't argue, "I'm not a dog." She leans into the metaphor.
She says, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table."
Yes.
So brilliant.
It is. She's saying, okay, fine, I'm not a child at the table. I'm a dog under it. But your power, your grace,
Yeah.
it's so abundant that I don't need a full plate. A crumb is enough.
She sees abundance where everyone else sees scarcity and rules.
And Jesus just loves it. He breaks character, or maybe he breaks protocol and exclaims, "Oh, woman, your faith is great."
And think about that contrast. He just called the religious leaders hypocrites and blind. He's always telling his own disciples they have little faith. But this outsider, this dog,
He gets the gold star. Great faith. It just proves that belonging isn't about your bloodline or your rituals. It's about your trust.
and her daughter is healed instantly. Her faith just smashed right through the border.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the grand finale of the chapter. Jesus leaves Tyre and heads to the Decapolis.
Another very Gentile-heavy, mixed region. And here we get what looks like a sequel to a very famous miracle.
The feeding of the multitude. Most people know the feeding of the 5,000. This is the feeding of the 4,000. And at first glance, it feels like a rerun.
More bread, more fish, yeah. But the details are everything. The context is different. He's in the Decapolis, and the crowd brings him all their sick.
And when they're healed, the text says they glorified the God of Israel.
That phrase is a huge clue. It implies the crowd themselves were not Israelites. They were Gentiles praising Israel's God.
So he's holding a healing rally in Gentile territory. And again, he feels compassion. He won't send them away hungry.
He takes 7 loaves and a few fish, feeds 4,000 men plus their families. But the key, as you said, is the symbolism in the leftovers.
Okay, let's break this down.
In the feeding of the 5,000, which was in a Jewish context, they collected 12 baskets of leftovers.
12 for the 12 tribes of Israel.
Exactly. The message was, God provides for his covenant people. But here, in the feeding of the 4,000, in Gentile land, they collect 7 baskets.
7? Why 7?
In the ancient world, a 7 was the number of completeness of creation. But more specifically, Jewish tradition often spoke of the 70 nations of the world. 7 was a number that represented the Gentiles, the nations.
So 12 baskets for Israel, 7 baskets for the rest of the world.
You got it. It ties right back to the woman. She asked for a crumb. Jesus responds by demonstrating there are 7 huge baskets of leftovers. There is more than enough bread of life for everyone.
That's an incredible arc for one chapter. We go from Pharisees policing clean hands to keep people out, to Jesus feeding thousands of outsiders.
It's a journey from exclusion to inclusion. The Pharisees used religion to build walls. Jesus uses his power to build a bigger table.
And we should mention, before we wrap, there's actual archaeology here. The beautiful Byzantine mosaics at Taga on the Sea of Galilee, they depict the loaves and fish. This story is rooted in a real place.
It is. These events left a deep mark.
So as we close the book on Matthew 15, we've watched Jesus take apart empty tradition, redefine purity as an issue of the heart, and throw the doors open to people who are supposed to be on the outside.
It's a powerful reminder that God isn't really impressed by our religious checklists. He's looking at the heart.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to take with you. We started with that Korban loophole, using a religious rule to get out of a moral duty.
The Pharisees felt righteous because they followed their tradition, even while neglecting their own parents.
So it raises a pretty sharp question for us. We might not have that exact tradition, but we have our own structures, our own routines.
Are there any traditions, policies, or even just religious habits in your life that you use as a shield?
Right. A way to excuse yourself from doing the hard, compassionate thing that's right in front of you.
Are we washing our hands to keep our hearts clean, or are we just washing them to keep our distance?
That is the question to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Keep thinking and keep digging.